In the early to mid 1990s, a young man in Cornwall, England named Richard James managed to change electronic music from a genre that was rigidly confined to nightclubs and maybe the occasional.
Okay, what is your favorite Aphex Twin stuff, guys? Favorite album, favorite song? His best album is Saw 85 to 92. Best songs, probably Window Licker. I do feel like after Saw 85 to 92, he started going in a very weird direction. Which, don't get me wrong, it's good, but it was just getting a little too weird.
The most far-reaching, imaginative, and innovative music of the decade. By the way, I'm not being hyperbolic at all. If anything, I'm actually understating this man's impact on music in general. And there are very few people who would disagree with me.
A madman of sound and process. He's been a big influence in Nine Inch Nails camp.
Music today.
Bro, the Window Licker video is so nasty, dude. And it's funny because, you know, Richard D. James is he's a moderately attractive person. So to do all that weird, ugly shit and him turning himself into a girl in that video, it was kind of odd. He didn't have to do that.
I think he's definitely the pioneer. Aphex Twin is the king.
People called Aphex Twins, okay? I didn't know anything about them. I start hearing like the weirdest—
This is Aphex Twins' core fan base right here.
—noises. I felt violated, like my soul was violated.
In this video, we're going to have a look at something that most electronic musicians have only speculated on. What software was Aphex Twin using in the peak period of his career? And I'm so excited to make this video because I can almost guarantee that if you're into experimental audio stuff, you're going to fall down a deep, deep rabbit hole with at least one of the things covered in this video. Before I became an obnoxious YouTuber, the most common question that I would get from other musicians that I met when I toured or seldomly checked Facebook messages was, what software do you use to make the flashbulb music? A part of me kind of hates this question because sometimes it carries the
FL Studio. He actually unironically uses FL Studio. I don't know what he was using before that, though.
Unintentional suggestion that there's—
Can't say gay. Weavesy is woke. He will get— I'm not woke. I am not woke, all right? And I'll say gay right now because I am pansexual. I can say gay. I can say the other word, too. You dare me to say it? I could say it. I'm allowed to say it. I got the pass. I got the pass. It feels uncomfortable to say still. It still feels uncomfortable to say, though. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Some secret tool out there that made all of my music rather than the countless hours of experimenting and editing and learning until my eyes and ears bled. And
okay. I can say— I'm allowed to say it, all right? All right? I'm allowed to say it. So nobody get mad, all right? Nobody get mad. I'm allowed to say it.
Sure, James has more focus and determination and imagination in his pinky than all of—
FBI has entered the chat.
—my body does, than most musicians do. And you're about to find out that this video isn't about the software that you can use to sound more like Aphex Twin. It's attempting to showcase how much of a genius Aphex Twin is, which I personally think is more inspiring as a musician. So let's dive right in with an instant classic. When I first got my hands on the Window Licker EP in 1999, I just didn't understand. And I didn't like it.
I don't know. Like, a lot of his music after Window Licker was just so weird. Like, it's like too weird. Like, I feel like it kind of lost me after that. Like, I get it, but like nothing is as like listenable as Window Licker at that point. Saw 85 to 92, amazing.
Get all that much either, with the exception of the final track, Nanu, because it's just pretty simple and melodic. It took a lot of re-listens before it started growing on me because it was frankly so far away from anything that I had ever heard before that there was just no way to easily
Aphex is living in the future for sure.
Digest it. It turns out that the other two tracks on the Window Licker EP weren't performed or programmed as much as they were painted. Richard primarily used UI Software's Metasynth, which is still being updated and sold 25 years.
I'm not gonna lie, I've never heard of that.
Years later. Metasynth more or less allows you to use sound as your medium, and then color represents panning. And once you manage to make a sonic image that you like, you can sequence it, among others, in software called
that sounds like unnecessarily complicated. Color represents panning? Why?
XX. And Metasynth is much more obvious and prominent on the second song on that EP, which is titled Pitchfork
Elon's next child name right there. Or Grimes, either one.
had claimed that it's related to a Fourier transform equation. Some others have speculated that it's
This is what I mean about him like trying to be too weird.
an algorithm that Richard uses in music production, but there's a far-end crosstalk in there, which is more of a communications thing, or at the very least, not something solely related to software. So I think it's just a kooky song title for a kooky song. Anyway,
Trying to be weird.
just search Aphex Twin Math or Aphex Twin Equation if you want to hear it. I made a long video about Metasynth some years ago, but let's just have a quick look at its core functionality. So nowadays in
I
Metasynth,
kind of want to try using this.
there's a whole onboard synthesizer that's actually quite powerful.
Wow, this looks like shit. I'm going to be honest. Wow, this looks like shit.
However, in 1999, this was not a thing. So I'm going to choose exponential tuning, and then I'm going to load a sampler. So I'm just drawing a French horn. So to add reverb
I've only heard one Sewer Slut song.
to them, you could just borrow
It was
one
pretty good.
end
It was
of
pretty
the
good.
image. All right, I'm going to make a beat.
Okay.
It's like a good sneeze.
Robot sneeze be like,
Sad beat. Okay, so now we have it synthesized and we could bring it into our effects room. That's pretty chaotic.
well, shit, this really seems like it was made for his sort of music. You know what I mean? For Aphex.
I don't know when Metasynth got an effects tab, but I did have Metasynth in like 2005 or something, and it had it then, and I guess it probably had it during the window licker era. Minor natural filter.
This just seems overly complicated.
I'm going to load in a hi-hat loop. And then I'm going to analyze that spectrum. And it should now play it with that voice.
Like this is like trying to make music with a broken hand or something. Two broken hands. And being blind. Yeah, I agree. It does sound interesting. It just seems really hard to like control.
That's a good Aphex pose, I suppose.
Oh my god. Oh, so you can figure out what your face sounds like. That's actually kind of dope.
Beautiful. Let's drag this into Audition and see if I can see my face. All these lines here is because I didn't entirely use exponential mode in Metasynth, but you could see my eyes.
I don't know. I've never heard of Metasynth.
And my smile. Good Lord.
Oh my
Wow.
god.
Yeah.
What?
This is a quarter of a century ago in this track
That's fucking crazy. Dude. That's crazy.
was made. And you could still probably get this same result from even the Spotify version or something. I'm fairly certain that I could be locked in a
That's
room
actually
for
sick.
a month with the much more featured modern version of Metasynth, and I still would not come close to making anything that sounds as structured or frankly as awesome as this.
This one's not bad.
Aphex Twin's most popular music, or at least the music that brushed up against popular culture at the time, really never represented the aura of his other work that well. I heard the infamously distorted Come to Daddy Pappy Mix single right before the EP was released, and I was kind of taken back a little bit. Little did I know that the full Come to Daddy EP or
Cool video, dude.
mini album itself would become what is probably the most innovative and influential album in all
Oh, IZUS is really good. I like that song a lot.
of electronic music.
Film's pretty good too.
The second track alone, Flim, is one of the most beautiful
Oh, sorry, Flynn. Is it really Flynn? Why do I always think it's film? Hold on. What? Oh, it's Flim. I always think it's film for some reason.
Influential album in all of electronic music. The second track alone, Flim, is one of the most beautiful, heartbreaking, deeply thematic melodies I've ever heard in my life, and the drum programming has become a common upper-tier goal of real live drummers to emulate. And we will dive into how that was made later in this video, but the peak of this album, and probably peak Aphex Twin for most people, would be Bucephalus Bouncing Ball, which means ox-headed bouncing ball, in case you were curious. And in the middle of the song, it becomes apparent to us the sound that is making up most of the crazy sounds in the rest of the song. A ball being dropped on a hard surface. The audio of this sample is eventually torn apart in ways that nobody had ever heard before, and it's recycled into new, completely batshit insane sequences. The thing is, in 1997, there really wasn't a graphical destructive wave editor that could do this.
Like skating.
Cool Edit existed back in 1994, but the powerful sound design features didn't arrive until at least Cool Edit Pro in 1998. What we're hearing in Bucephalus Bouncing Ball is Composer's desktop project, which I believe did not have a GUI or front end at the time.
Bro, what? This is all shit I've never heard of that either.
It ran on Atari ST initially and then later was ported to Microsoft DOS in 1995. CDP has easily been one of the most powerful pieces of software for sound design, and while it's now freeware, it still has functionality that I've not seen in any other software. Fortunately, over the years, third-party front ends have been developed that make it a little bit more accessible and allow us to play around with newer builds of CDP.
Yeah, I'm getting mixed signals here. Is Rocket League good or not, guys? Is it fun or not?
Unfortunately, it's going to feel extremely dated and frustrating compared to the user interface of modern software. There's Sound Loom, which I never really clicked with. There's Sound Shaper, which is almost
I mean, I don't think most people would click with any of these.
horrible. There's also Process Pack, Grain Mill and BRK Edit, Shimmer, Tabula Vigilans, and so on.
Nerd shit.
Yes. In case you were wondering, a 100% free sound design portal is opening up in front of you right now. So at least pause this video and give your family a big hug and kiss and let them know that
soccer, yeah, that is what Rocket League seems like.
You'll miss them before going on this epic voyage. All right, so I have a file called ball.wave. It's just a basketball bouncing. Now, Composer's desktop project is originally command-based. It didn't have a GUI at all. So after setting up your system environment, which isn't really all that difficult, you would just type reverb ball.wave as your in file. Your out file would be like ballverby.wave. Then you would have a bunch of parameters after that. So you would have your early reflection gain. You would have your mix. I'll put that as 0.7. You would have your reverb time. I'll put that for 2 seconds. You would have your absorption. I'll put that at 0.5. You would have your low pass frequency. I'll put that at 700, meaning 700 hertz.
You
and then you would have your trail time, and I'll put that at like 3.3 seconds. All right, and then you press enter, and now let's hear it. Probably the most difficult way that you could put reverb on anything in 2024, but fear not, there is a GUI. Sound Shaper just feels very Windows 98. Ah, no folder memory, that's always good. So for example, blur frequencies. You set the factor, every frequency above 430 hertz, and then low cut under 100, render. And the result, while not beautiful sounding, is kind of unlike anything that you could get from any other software, which is what makes it so exciting. This is quantize, and you can load a text file to customize how it's quantized. Freeze all of these steps.
Into that was kind of
a little bit. Golly, I have no idea what any of this is.
This is more like programming than it is like making music. Yeah, all these user interfaces make me want to die inside.
But now you might be able to see how a brilliant
We're looking at the stuff that Aphex Twin used to use to make music.
man nearly 30 years ago recorded a marble dropping on a glass table, and then without this
Making it out the hood with MS-DOS.
GUI, typed in a bunch of commands into DOS and subjecting himself to hours, days, maybe even weeks of trial and error. And now you may start to understand how the masterpiece, Bucephalus Bouncing Ball, was created. If you're really confused here and you want some heavy prep on CDP, Trevor Wishart's 1994 book, Audible Design, has a lot of diagrams that can help you understand the core of what CDP does. And if you're familiar with Bucephalus Bouncing Ball, you might be wondering what CDP sound generator is creating those low-bit modulated noises in the song. This one is easy and fun. As one might expect, some of Aphex Twin's older music was programmed on outboard gear, but when a computer was used, it was typically running software called Dr. T's Tiger Cub. Seriously. Dude? I spent 2 long days trying to get this software to run in an emulator and had no success.
We're going back to Mom's house with this one. We're never leaving our parents' house with this one.
However, I did find some videos of some folks who did have some success, both with the original hardware and emulators. I salute y'all for your patience. Really inspiring stuff.
What a lot of rubbish.
Story time. Ages ago when I was on tour with Dillinger Escape Plan, their drummer at the time...
What the fuck, dude? On tour with Dillinger Escape Plan? I learned something new about Ben every time I watch him. Like, whether or not I learned something from the video, I learned something about him at the very least. On tour with Dillinger Escape Plan? What is the story of that? Why is the flashbulb on tour with Dillinger Escape Plan? Hold on. If you don't know what Dillinger Escape Plan sounds like, let me just play it for you really quickly here. This is who he was on tour with. That's who he was on tour with. Like, they have less aggressive songs than that, but they're all pretty aggressive. Like, they're like... yeah, it's like mathcore, essentially.
Chris Penny made a remark to me that he likes how my music and Aphex.
So that was a very interesting fact to learn.
Twins music so often has linear drumming, and I didn't know what that meant. And he explained to me that
I kind of want to DM him, like, probably tomorrow if I remember, and be like, "What is the story with you being on tour with Dillinger Escape Plan?" No, they have better songs than that. That song, I don't really. That song's kind of. They have good songs. So that one, I don't know. But I really want to know the story behind that.
Simply means only one sound at a time. Much later, I would come to realize that Chris Penny is one of the best linear drummers of all time.
You know, maybe he was on tour, like some sort of tour where it's like music to do math to, because that would actually make sense then, because it's like, okay, IDM, and then we got Dillinger Escape Plan, mathcore.
But in my electronic musician brain, it just meant that I set a drum kit to monophonic, or I used the same mute or choke group for every single sound. And that's something I almost always did back then, and I still do it quite frequently. This video would be where you could see how that worked. All right. Do you know who else frequently uses linear drum programming? Tracker users. Trackers were originally a very efficient way to make computer music and are sequenced in top-down lines that can only play one voice at a time per line. So if you crammed your entire drum track into a tracker lane, it would be linear. This next statement is entirely speculative, by the way, but for the type of music you hear in the Richard D. James album, for example, it's hard for me to imagine that it wasn't a tracker triggering a SCSI sampler for the drums. In 1995, trackers weren't quite capable of playing a bunch of fast 16-bit sounds, but what did exist in 1994 was Recycle, which is Propellerhead's first software.
Oh shit. I've actually used that
product. Recycle was extremely innovative at the time, and it allowed you to detect peaks and transients in sound files, like a drum break, for example, and then send and route the individual sounds to a SCSI sampler like the Akai S2000. What I can say for certain is that the similarly melodic and intricately...
Yeah, that's how old I am. I remember Propellerhead's Recycle, because I used to use Reason.
Programmed song
Once Upon a Time
Vordhasbin from the 2001 Drux album.
Can I give Unison Audio your email? They already have it, man. They already got it.
Player Pro on a Mac for the melody. Here's a clip of, presumably, the original session shared by Richard himself, and I cannot express how difficult it must have been to make a melody this purposeful and provocative on this software. And as you can see, the polyphony, or the thing allowing more than one note to be played at the same time, is accomplished by splitting them up into separate lanes. This melody, which would be simple enough on a piano, is an example of a tracker's weakness. Not for Aphex Twin though, he breezes right through it and makes it look easy. Let's make a very quick, rudimentary, and probably shitty sounding version of an Aphex Twin tracker song.
Okay.
Fulton County in the second left lane on 85 South past exit 61.
Yeah, people say Ableton is like Excel. Yeah, no. This is Excel. No, like this is literally Excel. This is Excel. Hey, this isn't bad. Well, he's kind of cooking. Let him cook. I don't know. Excel's a pretty good DAW, apparently. Look at this.
I actually was initially planning on making a shitty version of Flim or Vordhusband on the Polyend tracker for this video, and then I discovered that a fellow audio YouTuber, Digifex Electronics, did this 2 years ago and pretty much killed it. If you own a tracker or a tracker mini or this thing that hasn't been announced yet, you can get it all from his Patreon. All of these links are in the description.
Yo, wait, he's cooking, dude. What? Fix cat, please. I would like to. I just didn't want to have to restart the stream.
One thing that I'm skipping here.
This is the first time I streamed in like 2 weeks, guys. I can't. We got 80 people in here. I cannot stop it to go do that.
In Aphex Twin's softwareography is almost certainly plenty of Super Collider, which to this day is an updated and free high-level audio programming language. It was originally created in 1996 by James McCartney, who allegedly had visited Richard in London.
That looks like Aphex Twin's brother. I'm not until I see otherwise. Yeah, it's funny. That's why it's funny when people call an artist by their first Flying Lotus. Oh, you mean Steven? Steve? Yeah, I know Steven. Oh, Aphex Twin. Oh, you mean Richard? Sorry, I don't know who Aphex. I know Richard though.
In a sort of private software collaboration tutorial thing. What that software was like is anyone's guess. However, one of Richard's roommates in this period was fellow Reflex artist Scilab, or Chris Jeffs. Chris made and makes music on his own software that he created in Super Collider.
That looks like a fucking... I mean, I know that's not like a jumpsuit there, but this is very reminiscent of a like a prison picture. Is he in jail now for being a serial killer or something? Like
makes music on his own software that he created in Super Collider. He called the software Scilab Music System, and he used it when he played live as well. And when I toured with him in the early to mid 2000s, he showed me how the software worked, and it was some next level stuff that definitely did not exist outside of his own computer. One particular piece of this software that totally blew me away, that I still think about all the time, was a TB303 style vocal sequencer with text-to-speech functionality. And that was like 20 years ago. I had the pleasure of chatting with Richard for quite a bit earlier today, and he gave me a...
What? Excuse me? I'm learning so many things about Ben right now. He chatted with Richard earlier today?
Long list of tools, some of which I frankly have never even heard of.
I haven't heard of any of these.
And
I've been listening to Aphex Twin for like, I don't know, like at least 15 years?
Forgot about, and unfortunately...
Probably longer. I don't know exactly. I couldn't tell you exactly. I forgot. I fucking forgot. That's how long ago it was. I fucking forgot. He's like, yeah, I was just talking to, Richard. My boy. I don't have his number saved as Aphex in my phone. It's actually Richard. Actually, I call him Richie. I call him Richie.
Video in the first place is an attempt to expand my viewers' palette of tools off of the beaten path territory. So please, try to run some of this stuff and experiment. So the Player Pro tracker that you saw a teeny bit of earlier didn't support VST plugins or anything like that, but it did allow you to execute code for custom synths and whatnot, and I had no idea this was a thing. And despite it being pretty difficult to get Player Pro running on anything these days, this is one of those details that may have been lost in history unless some jagoff said it on YouTube.
Yeah, he's also friends with this guy named Weaver Beats, you know. He's also friends with this guy named Weaver Beats.
One of the programs that caught me by surprise was Pratt, which I never even considered using in any creative way. I had it installed for voice printing for forensic audio work, and I don't think I ever
yeah, my homie John. You may know him as Beethoven, you know?
Actually used it for that, but I just had it installed and learned it a bit. But it turns out that there's a whole lot of exploring you could do with the voice synthesis and whatnot, and I'm excited to check that out in the future. One thing that Richard told me about that I simply cannot believe that...
He keeps saying Richard. This is driving me crazy. He keeps saying Richard.
UPick, which was designed by Giannis Anakis, and holy shit, I've never wanted to play with a synthesizer more in my entire life.
Instrumentalists, instrument makers, musicologists, but also physicists and mathematicians will find in the system a host of possibilities for experimental application.
Speaking of things I had never even known existed, when Richard was a teenager, he was using an add-on for the ZX Spectrum called RAM Music Machine, which had MIDI in and out, and it even supported very low-resolution sampling. News to me. Finally, unsurprisingly, he used a lot of stuff from Urcam, and without getting into specifics, you should just go down the Urcam Labs rabbit hole, as I cannot think of a more dedicated group of researchers and developers focusing on music and audio technology, and frankly, it's surprising.
Oh my god! And then my buddy Square Pusher and Aaron Funk and Richard all came over. We bake cookies, vegan cookies.
Done a video on Urcam software yet, and I'm sure I will in the very near future. So while some of the things that we covered in this video is old and inaccessible now, a lot of it is accessible and a lot of it is free, which gives you no excuse to not try and get it running and play.
Yeah, I agree. It is impressive people made music in such convoluted ways with no tutorials. Stop screwing around. Quit screwing around. Screw around too much.
With it yourself, and if you do, please let us see your results in the comments, because again, that's why I'm making this video.
Oh come on, just write Richard, bro. Don't write RDJ.
After Drux came out in 2001, the Aphex Twin would
beat him to a video on Urcam. I barely even know what it is.
Go on a 13-year hiatus.
I feel like
Richard James
my audience wouldn't care about that, and it would just flop super hard.
Did not. He amassed a ludicrous amount of analog gear and released over 5 hours of music and as many as 15 different releases under alternate aliases before releasing Cyro in 2014. But I had quite a few debates with other longtime Aphex Twin fans who thought that he had lost.
Oh my god. Yeah, I've had quite a few debates with other longtime Aphex Twin fans, then put this fucking Fantano on the screen. So yeah, I had a chat with Anthony.
Something
you may know him as the Needle Drop
from his peak years. I completely disagree. I think Aphex Twin's peak is defined by the listener, and I think we lost something in that period. For example, do you remember earlier when I said that I didn't really like Window Licker when it first came out? Well, I paid good money for it at the time, and I had trusted that I would eventually hear something that I didn't hear in the first few listens, and holy shit, I 100% did. I have no idea how many listens it took for me to personally declare.
Yeah, a lot of music like that, not everyone's ready to hear shit like that. It's advanced listening, especially like the further you go into like the weirder stuff of Aphex Twin.
To myself that the Richard D. James album or Come to Daddy are among the most innovative albums ever made, but it certainly wasn't the first impression I had when listening to them. At the risk of morphing into Rick Beato before your eyes, I do have to point this out, we just don't have that listening experience anymore. When we evolved from having to take the bus to a bunch of different music stores to find an overpriced experimental electronic music CD, all the way to a song just being fed to us on the Spotify algorithm, we lost patience. And we lost the obsessive-focused mindfuck that came with an Aphex Twin album in the 1990s. But do you know why nobody has accurately reverse-engineered or deconstructed or recreated any of the music that Richard James has released?
Because no one has the time. It's because no one has the time and is willing to learn these softwares.
In the last 15 years? It's because it's ahead of its time, it's next level, and nobody knows what the fuck is going on in those songs. When I was in my early teens, I was an awkward jazz guitarist programming Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa solos on a drum machine in South Chicago while house music was taking off. It's hard to overstate how popular electronic music was in Chicago at that time, but electronic music was remixes of the Speed Racer theme or somebody saying, "It's time for the percolator," over and over for 20 minutes to a 4/4 beat. I loved creatively programming drum machines and synthesizers to do things that humans couldn't. But I was ashamed to show my music to anybody because of the stigma of making electronic music that didn't work in a dance club. That is until I heard Aphex Twin, and then I realized that I indeed can do whatever I want. And there are thousands of musicians who benefited from the same young parasocial relationship with Richard's music in that period. If there's a takeaway from this video,
it's that I know Richard. I know Richard and we are good friends. That is all.
It would be the overall attitude of Richard James. For some reason or another, he has no creative boundaries at all. His music sounds 100% like someone exploring for their own benefit, not like something that is made to appeal to others or please Spotify's algorithm or get used in TikToks. I'm sorry.
True.
You or I will never sound like Aphex Twin.
Dude, imagine if Aphex Twin had like a resurgence in popularity because of TikTok. Like it started, just all his songs started going viral on TikTok.
But we can appreciate that he did the hard work for us by showing the world that there doesn't have to be any rules in electronic music, or music at all. And on that note, by the time you're seeing this, I'm probably renovating a new studio, so I'd better put on my work boots and get out of here. By the way, let me talk about my sponsor really fast. It's you. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more like it, consider joining my Patreon. I have loads of unreleased and released music, audio assets, field recordings, and a really positive community. You don't see those on the internet anymore.
He just recently left our Discord server. That's fine, but he's just, dude, like, you don't see those much on the internet anymore. He's not talking about us, is he? He can't be. He can't be. Oh, that was like a fucking shot to the heart right there. I don't, dude, no. No, we're positive, right, guys? He's wrong. We're positive. We are very positive.
Songwriting challenges. It's great. You should totally join. It's as little as $1. Thanks for watching. Do not stop creating. Bye.
I'll do what I want to do, all right, Ben? I'll do whatever the fuck I want to do. If I want to stop creating, I'll stop creating. Fuck it. I'll throw this keyboard out. Did you know that Ben was also a stand-in for Iron Maiden back in 2007? I don't... Alas, he's probably talking about y'all, Crody. No, shut up. Shut up, Niles. No, you're a part of that server, too. So he's talking about you also, man. Okay, that was cool. That was actually a unique video. I've always wondered what Aphex Twin had used. I figured... I thought it would be at least a program I had heard of. Like, all this shit is like nothing I've ever heard before. It explains a lot. It explains why his music is so weird.
The Band Incorporated.